All right, Wayne Bettis here, the founder of the Off the Tools podcast. I just want to introduce you to our brand new sponsor, directplumbing.supplies.com. It is founded by a former tradesman who has set up his own plumbing and heating merchants. He has an online shop, which is obviously at directplumbing.supplies.com, and he delivers across the UK. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the show. So, welcome to this episode of the podcast. Today, I am chatting with a gentleman called Andrew Millward, who is a successful heating engineer and owns property. And generally, I feel he's going to be a great man to have a discussion with. I've followed Andrew for a few years, and we certainly do not agree on everything, but I feel his knowledge and his life experiences will help me and hopefully help the listeners of this podcast with ways to grow and manage life and business. So let's get started. This is Wayne with Andrew Millward, and welcome, Andrew. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Very well.
Excellent. Thank you for having me in your home. Taking the time.
It's a pleasure.
Out.
It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, finally we've exchanged a few debates over our time.
Yeah, after many heated debates on the internet.
So my first question is who is Andrew Millward?
Okay, well, I'm 55 years old. Left school at 15, trained as an engineer at a craft level, and went on to do tech level. Worked in sales, studied sales and marketing, and at a crisis point in my life, at one point, I changed across into the plumbing and heating world, became a heating engineer. So that's a little summary of
great.
Me.
So, from what I know of you, I know that you own a few properties. So, can you tell us how you sort of got started in the property world and what you did to get started?
Yeah. You're very aware of my interest in politics, and it's kind of the two sort of knit along with each other. But basically, I was after my apprenticeship, I was pretty much broke. I was living in a caravan at the bottom of my mum's and dad's garden, absolutely penniless, working as an engineer during sort of recessional times, the sort of end of engineering really in the UK, so earning very little money and struggling. And I was doing karate at the time, and I got involved in a confrontation and ended up having my nose cut off. And in those days, they had something called criminal injuries compensation, and I received a large sum of money from criminal injuries for my injuries from an assault. And that's really what changed my life and got me into the properties. I took that money, started buying and selling cars as a sideline to my engineering work, doubled that money, and then used it to buy my first property.
Oh, wow.
That was coincidentally at the peak of house prices before the first Thatcher recession. So I bought the first property for $63,000, and within about a month or two, it was worth $25,000.
Wow.
And I'd bought it with two other guys because $63,000 was well out of the reach of a normal working person in those days, as houses are still today. But I was the only one left with a job. So I ended up, the other two opted out. I took over responsibility for the mortgage, and I started to rent rooms in that property to help pay with it. And it was really just a survival mechanism to actually hold on to the ownership of that property. But as the recession ended and interest rates came down, I found myself in a situation where I was getting paid to live in my own home. And it occurred to me at that point that actually I could copy this formula and actually buy more properties if only someone would lend me the money. And I could rent rooms in those properties and actually end up earning money, a small amount of money it would be, though the interest rates were still quite high, a very small amount of money from each property, but over 25-year periods I would accrue the full value of the asset plus its capital gain over the life of the property. And I thought this was a really good opportunity to secure a good pension. Pensions had, of course, collapsed. Pensions were doing really well during the boom years, but they completely collapsed during that recession. So around that time, I met a young lady, and I sort of suggested the same formula to her, and she took it on board. She went out and started buying houses on our behalf, and we started building a small portfolio. And later on, we split, and I met my wife, and she continued the trend for me. So then my ex has continued as well. She's got 7 or 8 properties now. And I think between me and my wife, I think we have something 7 or 8 properties now.
Oh, wow.
So it's not a massive property portfolio, but it's a good property portfolio. And that's, of course, what funds my lifestyle. It allows me to take the 6 months off work and the 6 months in work, which is a great position to be in. And I've been doing that since 47 years old. So.
Right, okay. So it sounds like property has given you that security to be able to live a better lifestyle that you want to live. And
yeah, I think people misinterpret how I live, though. I think people think I've got a lot more money than I have. I've got a good kind of a portfolio value.
Yeah.
And the income's good. But I do live quite frugally. So when I'm in England here, I actually live in a room in one of my HMOs. I don't live in my own fully occupied house or flat.
Right, okay,
I live in a room in an HMO. And me and my wife don't have a lavish lifestyle. I don't own a car.
Wow.
So,
so like a lot of, like you said, the perception of what someone is to the actual reality of is always
not
different.
The same. I'm very, very comfortable. I don't have a problem affording anything that I particularly want to buy, but I don't have great desires to own massive things. And of course, we've got the beautiful house in Estonia, which looks like a millionaire's pad, but actually we paid £60,000 for that.
Wow.
So, we bought it. We spent a lot of money doing it up. So there's a kind of image that goes along with it and the freedom. But I would say that the biggest thing I've got in life that other people don't have is freedom.
Yeah.
It's the ability I don't actually have to work at all. I choose to work and I don't have to work. But I don't have to work because I'm not frivolous. I don't waste money.
You mentioned the word frugal earlier on, and I strongly believe that a lot of people think you're a tight ass if you're frugal, but it's common sense, isn't it? If you can live lightly, you're going to end up with a surplus of money. And if you have a surplus of money, you can do a lot more things, can't you?
Absolutely, yeah. There was a saying, wasn't there, that if your income is less than your outgoings, you live in hell, and if it's more than your outgoings, you live in heaven. Yeah. And I think that's exactly right.
Very simple, but I think a lot of people tend to sort of avoid living by that rule, don't they?
I think if I lived a lifestyle like most people would around me, I would probably have 0 leftover cash at the end of any one year. But because I live the way that I live, I don't actually, I live completely expense-free almost.
Yeah.
I've got large sums of money left at the end of every year to invest in more properties and to do other projects that I want to do and travel and stuff. And that buys you a lot of freedom, and I enjoy that freedom.
I bet you do, and freedom is what most people are searching for. If you give someone £1 million, a lot of people would just end up wasting that. And then they'll end up with no freedom. Whereas I think a lot of people's drive is to create some level of freedom in their life because freedom lets you have choices, and choices is what you want. You don't want to live in a rat race of going round and round and round.
Absolutely, it's very, very easy to spend lots. I've just for the first time in my life decided a little experiment where I didn't check my money, I didn't live frugally, and I managed to spend £10,000 in 5 weeks on a holiday. I've never spent that kind of money in a year before, other than the year when I bought a new motorbike. We live very frugally, but and it's really painful to come home and see my bank account down by 10,000. I've had an amazing holiday, but is it £10,000 worth of amazing? I would say it isn't. Yeah. I'd just say I've just wasted an awful lot of money.
So it proves your life theory, your life method works well for you, then, doesn't it?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, if I'd chosen to eat in different restaurants or chosen different things to do, I could have spent a far, far less money, made a few decisions to spend a far, far less money. I'd have still had a really great holiday. So I think people just don't think enough about how to be frugal, about how to be economical with their expenditure, and they end up being poor as a result, or being short of the freedom that they want. They or they spend themselves into their own kind of prison, if you like. Yeah. They've got to work, and they've got to work really hard just to pay for the few things they think that they're entitled to or life should provide for them. Well, actually, a little bit of sacrifice, a little bit of going without, and you can buy your freedom, I think. So
yeah, and I think being in a trade like we are, as heating engineers, gas engineers, plumbers, whatever terminology you want to use, we are in a luxury position. We earn we can earn, should I say? We can earn very good money if you do things right.
If you're a heating engineer and you're not in the top 10% of earners in the UK, you're doing something wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think what a lot of people do is they get carried away with that I call it mini success, because we're still having to work every day. So it's not success in the long term. But I think people get carried away. They buy the bigger house, they buy the nicer car, and then before they know it, their whole great good income is being sucked left, right, and centre, which then gives them no choice and no freedom. So we need to grasp the opportunity we have and realise that if we box clever, we can make a great life rather than just an average or a good life, definitely.
It's an interesting point. It does come back to some of my political rants, but the one thing I've identified is that, this is my opinion maybe, but I think it is actually the truth and not just my opinion. And that's that if you want a passive income, if you want an income so you don't have to work and the money's got to come in, you need capital. You need to invest that capital to get a return on it. And this is, to me, the definition of capitalism. And if you're the one with the capital and investing it, you create so the socialists would argue, you create a slave environment. So the people that then have to work to generate the money that comes to you as a capitalist, it's a kind of theft, they would describe it as, where you're taking money from them. And you have to bear that in mind. We're in a luxury position to become capitalists and have a passive income if we're clever with the money we generate, because we're capable of generating incomes in that top 5% bracket. Yeah. But you need to be responsible with that as well, and just think about the fact that for every time somebody climbs up into that passive income bracket, they're actually creating a bigger level of poverty for the other people around them. That's a little bit hard to balance up in your mind. But at the end of the day, that's a system we've got to live with. And if you've got the opportunity to buy your family out of the rat race and into that race, it would almost be morally wrong not to, even if you think it's immoral to do so. Yeah, no,
I totally understand you. I totally understand you.
So everyone thinks I'm a socialist, but I argue the points. I'm just trying to point out the sort of unfairness of a capitalist system, but I am a capitalist, and I'm taking full advantage of it.
And that takes some moral sort of tackling, I bet, to sort of be a socialist at heart, but leverage
I wasn't till I bought the property in Estonia, and I was sat in my garden in the middle of a day in my pyjamas drinking coffee, looking at the manor house opposite. I own a house on a feudal estate, thinking about what a nasty bit of work the Lord had been to have all the peasants working. And he was basically charging them for the vodka and the bread and everything. So he was just giving the money and taking it back by selling them the produce that they made.
Right, yeah.
So it was no better than slavery, and he was living in a massive, great manor house with all the trimmings that life could provide in the time period he was in, while the people around him were dying at 30, 35 years of age because they had nothing, and he was taking it all. And the Soviet Revolution actually doubled the life expectancy of those peasants by actually allowing them to keep the wealth that they generated through socialism, and not allowing the capitalist of a day, the feudalist, to take the money from them. And that was a big eye-opener for me. And I was sitting there thinking what a nasty bit of work this guy was. And I realised it was me. Yeah. I was doing exactly the same thing under the guise of capitalism.
On a smaller scale, but to the same principles of what he was doing, right?
But then I had to think about it. What do? Do I do the moral thing and go back and say, actually, I'm going to get rid of all my property and I'm just going to go to work for the rest of my life? And I looked at what was around me, and actually most of the people voting to support this system were the people who were suffering from the system. Yeah. And it made no sense to me to give up this opportunity to be, I was never going to be, you're either going to be a victim of it. If you've got capitalism in place, you're either going to be a victim of it or you're going to be a successor. Yeah. There isn't a halfway house, which is basically socialism. You've got a choice. You're at the bottom end of it or the top end of it, kind of thing. Yeah. I wasn't going to just swap it for the bottom end.
Right.
So that's where I've stayed with that.
Okay, well, we'll leave that there before we go too deep on the politics of life.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll stick there.
How did you? So obviously you've briefly said about how you got started in property. How did you get into the trade? What made you become the heating engineer, gas engineer that you are today?
Well, really, I was an engineer to start with. Okay. So the skills that were needed to transfer across into heating engineer or plumber were pretty much there. There wasn't much that I couldn't understand, work out and put together. And you weren't required to be qualified in any way at all when I entered the business. So I did my first Corgi exam about 3 weeks after deciding I was going to be a heating engineer, got all the questions wrong and still got registered.
I've heard a few of them stories from back in the day. So.
It was really like that. But then you got the Corgi magazine, which actually told you all the basic safety stuff that you needed to be doing. Mm-hmm. So from those magazines, I actually learned all my basic safety checks, flue testing and all that kind of stuff after having been gas registered. And after having already started practicing in gas. And that was the case for lots and lots of people in those days. But the thing that actually got me started was I got sacked. I had a job in sales, and I was working for a company called Arga. It's the industrial gas division. It's a same company, Arga, that do the Arga cookers. And what I'd noticed was no one worked in the company for more than 2 years. And what happened, it was under the Thatcher government at the time, and they'd changed the employment laws to give, so you had no workers' rights until 2 years. So what the companies were doing, just sacking everyone before the 2 years, getting rid of them, just getting new people in. You got a good time period out of a salesman in 2 years, and so they'd take you on, get you to do your job. Your 23 months came, you got called into the office, and you got sacked. And the same thing happened to me, and I was looking at this and I'm thinking, well, I've just put my whole life into this company, trying to do a really good job for them. I went to college, I studied sales and marketing at college, business studies, which has been a great asset since, I must say. But I studied all that as part of that job, only to be just kind of dismissed and thrown away because
of the company paying a system.
Rights. Yeah, I'd have some rights, and so I just thought, I don't want to work for anybody else again. And I was talking to my father, who's a heating engineer, and I sort of said, I don't know what to do. And he said, I've got a big job on. He said, do you want to come and help me? And I never enjoyed myself so much. Never. Yeah. Just had such a good time. And his phone was ringing off the hook, so I just started doing small jobs for him. And then we got a phone call from an insurance company he did small jobs for, and they said they'd been particularly impressed with the way that I'd handled a complaint about a job we'd received, and would we like to talk to them about operating a whole area for them? And I said yes. My dad said no. They wanted a reduced rate, and he wasn't willing to go back on his rate. But I said, yeah, let's give it a go. And I did that. And within about 2 weeks of saying yes, I had 14 people working for me.
Wow.
Yeah. It was
a big contract then, by the sounds of it.
Yeah. It was a complete loss maker. I didn't make any money. I just worked. I don't know how I survived it. I only did it for a year, and I was literally coming in 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was back in the office by 7 a.m. And it was 7 days. And I remember getting phone calls through the night as well, and waking up with a cold sweat. And if I heard the Nokia ringtone anywhere, it would send me into some kind of body shock. It was a nightmare. And I wasn't making money. I was literally working myself crazy just to keep these people employed. And they were earning reasonable money, and I was getting nothing. And at the end of 1 year, they sent a guy round to come and assess what we were doing, and he went out with each one of my staff. And then a couple of weeks after he did this, I came in on a Monday morning, and none of my staff did. And what the insurance company had done is they'd gone to all my staff and said, look, we want you to come and work for us. Direct. We want to cut Andrew out.
Okay. And
they'd all agreed. Every single one of them agreed. As I came into the office, and there was my secretary had gone. One of the girls that operated the business was actually my girlfriend, who I talked about earlier with the properties. And there was one guy that subcontractor they knew I was good friends with that they didn't approach because they knew he wouldn't that he'd be loyal. So there was two of us. There was me and Martin, his name was, and my girlfriend sat in this office, and the phones continued to ring. And what we realised was that the phones weren't going crazy. We weren't spending lots of time organising lots of people to lose money. We were just doing a reasonable pace of work, and we earned. I think I made 45,000. This is going back quite a few years. That year I made £45,000, which was a lot of money. Yeah, God. And I worked a fraction of the hours. I was still working long hours, but still a fraction of the hours I've been working before. And it was a real lesson in business. You know, you can be a very busy fool if you're working for too little money. And I think my dad was right. To sell yourself short is a big mistake. You don't want volumes of work. No. You want the best price you can get for the hours that you want to work, and it's a
See, that story, although not as extreme as your personal account of literally being poached away like that, but many people that I've spoke to over my 15 years in the trade have mirrored a very similar story to that, where they created a monster in essence, where this business was big, loads of people dependent on it, but the bottom line just wasn't there. And with time and experience, they realised, let's scale back, increase our prices, be a bit more specific with the customers that we're willing to work with, and they all earn more money than they've ever earned before. So it definitely seems to be a common denominator in our trade, that big isn't always better.
It's interesting you say trade, because this is the thing. That's what my little theory is, that actually I kind of say that a trade isn't a business. It is a business, but what I'm trying to say to people is that if you're selling cups, here we've got a cup of coffee here on the table. So if I'm selling cups, I can literally place an order for an extra 200 cups on a week if I get more sales, and I can sell 200 extra cups. But I can't sell an extra 5 hours after I've sold all my hours. I'm limited on the hours I can sell. So why would you discount all the hours in the week? You're not going to sell any more. So it doesn't make sense to do a discount.
It's a great analogy of it.
So I don't see plumbing as a business as such. I would refer to it as a trade, and you're literally swapping your hours for money, and you can't scale this thing very easily. If you start taking on employees, my experience is the employees, they basically want the money they would earn if they were running the business themselves, which means there's nothing left for you as a profit. You're going to take your overheads out. You're lucky to squeeze a little bit out of it, and then you lose all the control, all the reliability and everything else. And I've tried it many, many times over and over again, and anyone that can succeed building a business that way, hats off to them. I failed every single time I tried. I just seem to have spent my whole life running around after people I'm trying to get to work for me, rectifying their work, giving money back to customers, and earning less money. And the most successful time for me has always been when I'm on my own.
So coming back to working on your own, so currently, how do you manage? I know you mentioned you're out of the country for about half the year. So when you are in the UK working, how are you managing things day to day, and what happens for the 6 months that you're gone?
I would say now we just don't manage.
Okay.
So I'd say basically what's happened is I got to a position where I just thought, if I care about my business, I don't have a life. So I don't care. Basically, I'll answer the phone. I'll take the jobs I want to do. I have little time. I'm not dispolite to my customers, but I have little time, a little tolerance for my customer. As far as I'm concerned, I'm selling my hours. I can provide a skilled labour to them. I don't care if I get the job or not. I don't need the money. And if they're willing to pay my price for me to come and treat me correctly, I will go and do the job for them. And do you know what? It works brilliantly for me. Absolutely brilliantly. Today I've taken a day off. I've got to go to the dentist. I'm speaking to you. I've got to get a blood test, whatever else. I've been to the customer this morning. I meant to do today. He said, look, don't want to work today. Let's do it Monday. She's agreed, and I'm here.
So very relaxed approach to what I call the business. Then.
Nothing targeted, nothing organised. I've got rid of all the computer systems, all of the kind of stuff that ties you up and ties you not. So we have a simple paper form. I get paid by cheque.
Cheque?
By cheque.
Wow.
At the end of the week, you take a wad of cheques to the bank. You pay them in. You know you've been paid. You know they're in the bank. I haven't got to go on a computer and look at and reconcile and try and work out which one of my 20 customers that paid £108 and didn't put the reference number on is the one that did pay, and which one is it that didn't pay, and send them all a debtor's letter and spend a day and a half of administration. Just got the cheques attached to the job sheets. I can see clearly which cheque I've lost or which one didn't get written. Drop them at the bank, and it's just so simple.
And simple seems to be the word. I've tried every software system under the sun, and it sounds to me like the way that you do it is the old school way. It's how it was run 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's the way my dad did it.
Yeah. So, and I think sometimes as humans, we try to overcomplicate everything when something simple that gives us a solution can be just as, if not better, than some fancy dangled system.
The missing bit, if you do my system, is you've got no database for boiler service reminders, that kind of stuff. You've got to build that separately. But to be honest, in the area I'm in, my phone just doesn't stop ringing anyway. So I don't care.
So,
I don't care. If they don't ring me for a service next year, I'll just go and do a breakdown instead. And I'll normally make more money from a breakdown than a boiler service. Yeah. I do my boiler contracts. I think you've got a similar business with.
Yes, I offer service contracts as well,
and that's a great idea. Yeah. That's really works well. We make a good profit off of the boiler service contracts. We've got a tied customer base. You know you've got a turnover of X thousands a year. You know roughly what your profit margins are on that. It's a really tidy little business to operate. And the other good thing about that is it tends to create business in the winter time and not in the summertime, which is, as you know, I don't work the summertime, which is good. So at the moment, so the business is basically not planned and not organised. And we have a couple of subcontractors. I think we've got 3 subcontractors at the moment.
Okay.
Who always want work in the summer and don't want to do anything for us in the winter
time. Story of
exactly.
Life. Yeah, they're your best friend for 4 or 5 months, aren't they?
Which is great, because in the summertime while I'm away, my sister now runs the whole business. She will just pass the job out to any one of the 3 or 4 guys we've got subbing, and she'll get most of the work done in the summertime while I'm away. And then when I come back, basically I take the phones. I'll do 80% of what comes in. If we can't do it, we don't do it.
Wow. It sounds like a great lifestyle business. And I think if you ask most people, that most people will want a lifestyle business rather than this big machined business with 20 employees. So I think there's some great insight.
Once you accept that a heating company or plumbing company, if you accept my theory of it not being a business, I understand some people see it differently, and some people are successful at operating it as a business. So I don't say it's not, and it's not doable. It's just very, very hard work. Yeah. But if you accept that you're a tradesman, and that's a different kind of business, a different kind of practice, very similar to a professional. It's very similar to being a doctor, a lawyer, or a solicitor. You're selling a skill, and you've got so many hours to sell it in, and you can only do so many hours, so much work in those hours. Not scalable. Yeah. You cannot double your output. Yeah. Which actually is interesting, because I know you've got a question about LLPs, and it's why I was interested in the LLP idea.
Yeah, we'll jump back to that in a minute, if that's okay, because I wanted to touch a bit on. I know you set up a group of engineers called eco-technicians a few years back.
It wasn't a group of eco-technicians. Wasn't actually like a network or LLP.
Okay.
Eco-technicians was simply like a technical. In fact, I didn't set it up.
Oh,
it was actually set up. No, it was set up by Alec Morrow and some other guys many, many years ago to promote modulation controls.
Oh, okay.
And they were trying to push the sort of more advanced controls well ahead of any of us really knowing anything about them.
Okay.
Peter Greenbank, I can't remember the name of the other guys that were involved, but there was a team of guys really interested in the high-tech stuff. And I bumped into Alec Morrow when I worked for Viessmann. I got a contracting job with Viessmann. I bumped into Alec Morrow, and he was telling me all about modulating controls. And I didn't understand them, but after a while I sort of worked my way through it all and got involved with it. And Alec was, they'd not got anywhere with eco-technicians, and we went with a group of guys from GES UK, Gas Engineers UK forum.
That was before Facebook groups and stuff, wasn't it? Or
well, this was a Facebook group.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember the guy's name that ran it at the time. Guy from Manchester. I should remember his name. But if he hears the podcast, I apologise. But anyway, we're on that forum, and a group of us had gone to a plumbing exhibition, and Alec was saying, right, I'm going to finish off ET and get rid of it. And I said, well, let's put the idea to some people here. So I called a few people together at a little restaurant there, a little cafe, and I said, look, what do you think of this idea? We could actually group together. And I actually propositioned the idea of an LLP at that point. And everyone was really, really enthusiastic about it, and everyone said yes. And there was a massive sort of uplifting spirit about the whole thing. And so we started the forum ET, and we started talking technical, talking about modulating controls and all this stuff. But it soon became apparent that the LLP idea was just wasn't practical on a national basis.
So for those, sorry to jump in, for those that don't know what an LLP is, can you quickly describe what an LLP?
Get back into politics here. So LLP basically it's like a cooperative.
Okay.
So it's a system by where no one makes a profit on the back of somebody else. The person that does the work, a complete meritocracy, where the person that does the work keeps 100% of the money that they make.
Okay.
There's no bosses and there's no slaves in the system. Basically, it's a socialist model business.
Okay.
And the idea is that you get some efficiencies in overheads, also allows you to employ a professional person to run the business for you, who you pay a salary to. They can be an owner of some shares in the business if they want to. But you would have a salaried member of staff to run the main business interests, who would normally be the boss.
Yeah.
But in this situation, the workers would be the boss.
Okay.
And they would employ the administrator, who would do the role of what would be a traditional boss in a capitalist system. And this was it was taken on as a really good idea.
On the face value of it, it seems like it could have solved a solution to many people's sort of concerns.
Socialism, it's a fantastic idea, but does it work? No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So nature opposes this thing, and it's exactly the same. I've tried the experiment twice of setting up LLPs, and every single time the mistrust sets in within minutes.
Right. Okay.
The minute it's going, everyone's looking for how are you making money out of me? Yeah. Okay. Instead of looking at the fact they're making more money than they've ever made before, they're looking at how you're making money out of them, and you're not. And it drives them crazy because they just think you're outsmarting them and out-manoeuvring them to make money from them. You're not. You're just busy making your own money.
Yeah.
You're making a load of money because you're working and keeping all your money, and you're sharing these overheads. Yeah. It's not a massive saving on the sharing of the overheads, but the organisation, the having someone to organise a business, and that was another key.
It frees it. In essence, it would free the people involved to do the job, to do the work, earn the money, build the customers.
Well, I calculated that by having an administrator, we could do 1 hour's extra charge to work a day each. Yeah. And if you work 5 days, and that's £90 an hour, you've got 400 quid, 450 quid a week extra. Well, that's
just like charge £2,000 a month, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, life-changing money for many people, isn't it?
It's a bigger extra income than the average UK income, just for having an administrator in your business. The fact that you haven't got to go home and fiddle around and do the paperwork, you could actually squeeze maybe an extra hour on the day too while you're doing that. Maybe that would be an extra £40,000 a year, just for having your administrator and working 1 extra hour. And when you start looking at the scale of that, it's very quickly you can go into good figures. I mean, I have earned in years over £120,000. And that puts you, I think that's top 5% income bracket. Yeah. So normally you're in the top 10%. You can go into the top 5% if you work Saturday and you stay out late every night. Then I don't have a family, which is what's allowed me to do that. So I've been able to do that in the past, and I've been able to divert the funds that I've made for that into property, generally in the renovations of them rather than purchase. I've done purchasing through remortgaging mainly.
Okay.
But being able to divert those funds into renovation of property.
So rather than wasting that income, I
didn't have time to spend it. I was too busy working, and I didn't have a family to spend it on. And I'm living rent free. Yeah. I'm not paying my own mortgage. I'm living completely free. So if I earn 120,000, what might I spend in a year? 10. Yeah. So I've got £110,000 left at the end of the year that I haven't spent
to be able to invest and speculate. And
£1,000,000.
Yeah. 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 Well, when you say it like that, it's crazy, isn't it?
It's phenomenal money to have just sat around. And many years at the end of a year, I'll have £50,000 or £60,000 left in my bank account because I don't have anything to spend it on. And it's not that I'm earning masses of money more than other engineers. It's just simply that I don't have the expenses. Yeah. So that's sitting in the bank account, and I can do these things with it. Have an amazing holiday, or
do you see LLPs as a way to do it, or do you think it's cursed from the beginning because of?
Okay, well, this is going to be a very unpopular point of view. If you could find a group of left-wing thinkers, you could run successfully an LLP.
Yeah, you think it's a mindset? It's a mindset change.
It's a mindset. They've got to understand the idea of helping other people is what will help you. Okay. And in my opinion, people who think of a right-wing point of view tend to think the other way round. It's what I can grab and do for myself. Mm-hmm. Why should I help other people? Why should there be benefits? Why should I care? Yeah. Why should I look after someone else? Well, this isn't going to be the mindset for an LLP.
Yeah. No.
I want to care. I want to look after.
It makes sense, definitely.
So if I make that phone call and make sure Joe's got that job that just came in, when the phone rings in a couple of days' time, and he does the same for me, we're going to help each other. It's okay, I'm making an effort for someone else, but he's going to make an effort back for me.
Yeah.
It's that looking after
equal exchange between each other then, isn't it? Like, is a must.
Yeah, and that's the concept of an LLP. But unfortunately, in our trade, I think the majority of people in our trade are right-wing thinkers.
Yeah.
And maybe the left-wing thinkers are working for other people.
Right.
And not running their own businesses,
That could be true.
Yeah.
So moving on from that, because again, we keep touching on politics.
Related, I see everything in terms of politics and left and right.
And it is. Everything is affected through politics, isn't it? Or by politics. But we'll move on. And the next question I've got is there any standout mistakes that you've made in your past, and anything that you would advise to others to avoid doing the same mistake that you have?
And reverse the question a little bit as well, if that's all right, about things I think that can make the big differences.
Mm-hmm.
So, biggest mistake, employing people.
Yeah.
Biggest mistake, relying on other people. I would say all the mistakes are to do with involving other people in what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So I would say if you want to be successful in this job and as a tradesman, stay as a one-man band, work your ghoulies off, do all the hours you can, be highly efficient, making sure you're charging the top rate for your job and delivering a good service. So it's kind of your question and the reverse of it there. Yeah. What not to do. And I would say that would be, if I went back now, I would never employ anybody. Yeah. I'm in a situation now where I need to subcontract and need to have people doing it because of my lifestyle. But if I was back in my money earning days as a young man, I would just simply keep my nose to the grind wheel. I'd just do the work myself, forget about involving anyone else. Yep. Every time I involve someone else, it just lost me money. Yeah.
And what you've said there is, I'm 31, so fairly young.
I started, by the way, when I was 32.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, you missed that. That was a big point.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful. I built a business and lost it, and it could have very easily ruined me. So I've learnt that lesson fairly young, and I've now scaled right back, and I'm following what you've just said. I'm basically working what I want to work, charging what I want to charge, and looking after myself in essence. So I can definitely agree with that point there, definitely. I believe we've got to wrap this up very soon. Sorry about the phone in the background. We're all busy men. I'm going to ask one last question. It's going to be a bit of a theme of the podcast. Yep. And it is, how do you identify yourself as? So, are you a tradesman? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you a businessman? Are you a landlord? Or are you everything or something different? What would you call yourself if someone said, Andrew, who are you? Who are you? What are you?
I guess in a very small way, entrepreneur. And I would say just on the basis of identifying opportunity and taking advantage of opportunity, I'd say that's entrepreneurship. Definitely. And I've definitely done that. I've seen opportunities to do with my own business and to do with, I have 3 different businesses in effect. And I've seen those opportunities and I've grasped them. But it's a small way. It's not major entrepreneurship, but it's an entrepreneurial spirit. Yeah. As far as the business is concerned, plumbing and heating, tradesman. Yeah. Tradesman, not businessman. Yeah. Tradesman. The landlord renting bit, I don't know, maybe business. Yeah. Maybe a little small-time businessman, maybe. Why is it? Do you get so many?
We're all in the real world. Our phones never stop, do they? They never stop.
So, so I would say that, So okay. A little bit of both of those, but...
I expect a wide variety of answers for that question. Yeah. And the reason I ask it is because I'm a firm believer in your thoughts become your reality. So I'm just, from a personal perspective, I'm intrigued to see
I love that. Thoughts become your exact. Yes, yeah,
and it just intrigues me. And when I'm speaking to people, I want to try and get insight to see what they think of themselves.
Can I just pick on that point for a second? One of the things I learned when I was in sales was what you believe is what other people will believe from you. Yeah. And it's very similar to what you've just said.
Yeah, very similar.
A quick story. I was asked to sell direct debits for the gas company I worked for. And there was 5 salesmen. We were all given direct debit forms and told to go and sign the customers onto direct debit. And at the end of each week, I'd come back with all my customers signed up, and the other sales engineers would come in and say they don't want them. And I looked at this and thought, what was going on? And what I found out, they were asking. They were going to the customer and say, do you want a direct debit? I was going to the customer and saying, please fill in the direct debit form.
Okay.
And that was a crucial difference. If you said to them, do you want it? They were saying no. If you said fill the form in, they just filled the form in.
Yeah.
My belief was that there was no expectation of choice from the customer.
Yeah,
it was
you
just simply
presented
something
it
they had
as
to
do that, and that they followed.
And my belief projected onto them, the words that I said projected onto them, they filled the form in. Very occasionally I get someone saying, I don't want a direct debit, but most people just filled it in.
Yeah.
The minute the others were giving the choice, and we got paid £10 a direct debit, so it's quite...
So it's a nice little number there. Then,
it was
by
a
the
nice
sounds
little
of
extra
it.
bit of beer money. But yeah, very much on the point you just said, what you believe is and also your reality, what your... So we had the arguments about politics before.
Yeah.
And your personal experience of certain subject was very different to my personal. But my reality and your reality were different. They were both realities, but they were different realities.
Yeah, neither right nor wrong.
No, that's right.
Yeah,
just personal experience. And I think it's really important to remember that through life, that life isn't what you think it is. You only see part of life, and it's just your reality. And everyone's living in their own.
You should always seek for different perspectives on anything, whether it's a life issue, a business issue, whatever. The more perspective you can give something, the better you can make a judgment on that, can't you? So I believe Andrew has got to go right now. We're already overrun a little bit, so I would just like to personally thank Andrew for taking the time to sit here and have a chat with me. I hope to all you guys that have been listening, I hope that you've enjoyed the show. I hope that you have found some insightful information hidden within there, and look out for the next episode. So thank you again, Andrew.
Cheers. Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And nice to meet you.
Nice to finally meet, definitely. Right, see you later. Cheers. I really hope you enjoyed the show. I just wanted to pull it out there for anyone listening that I offer business coaching, but also life coaching. My life is centered around something called the 3 Bs, which stands for body, business, and balance. When you work with me as a coach, we tackle all 3 aspects of life. So you as an individual, body, mindset, health, fitness, knowledge, education. Business B obviously stands for your business, improving, maximizing opportunities, elevating, making more money. And balance stands for your friends, family, loved ones, making time for everything in your life. And the 3 Bs is the core element to that. If you'd like to learn more, I would ask you to reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you might be consuming my information. Or you can email me directly at wayne@offthetools.co.uk. I'm here waiting to assist you to elevate across all aspects of life. Have a good one. No excuses. Let's go.